Hi, I'm Tom, and welcome back to my devlogs for Golden Age, which is my puzzle-driven RPG game. Currently, I'm just catching you up on all the work I've been doing for the past year. If you want to support me and follow along, please subscribe and hit the like button. It honestly means a lot to me. In this video, I'm going to be talking about the sword fighting puzzle. This is going to be an important puzzle for determining who wins the boarding action at the end of the battle phase. Sword fighting is very closely modelled around the original Puzzle Pirate sword fighting game. Personally, it was one of my favourite parts of that game. I didn't want to change too much about the actual puzzle itself. The original inspiration for this puzzle comes from a game called Super Puzzle Fighter 2 Turbo, which was a puzzle game made in like the 90s. Sword fighting is a fairly simple concept. You build attacks by creating chains and combos from the four colours of blocks, and then you use those breaker blocks of the matching colours to destroy the blocks. This then sends over blocks to your opponent, who then has to clear them as they slowly turn into coloured blocks from grey or like special kind of sword blocks. The objective is basically just to kill your opponent by filling up their board whilst keeping your board clear. So being strong and sending over good attacks, getting good combos, that's what helps you win the game. My version works exactly this way too, although the main difference currently is that you'll only ever be fighting PvE, as there's no multiplayer. I've also added a small twist to the game, which I hope will make the game feel a little bit more forgiving when you've got some nasty block drops. From a development perspective, there was quite a few challenges. I started off by creating a simple version of Tetris because I thought that would be fairly similar to the core gameplay mechanics of sword fighting. However, it quickly became apparent that aside from the movement system, nothing between them is similar at all. Where the main issue comes in is how things get cleared. In Tetris, it's very simple. You loop through a line, you check all the spaces are filled, and then delete the line and add points to the player's score.
Ah, shit.
In sword fighting, clears only get triggered by a breaker block, which can lead to strange patterns. You get linking blocks on different lines, and you have all sorts of different kind of configurations that you have to check for. To solve this problem, I implemented a recursive wave function collapsing algorithm. I think it's that anyway. It's kind of how it looks and how it works. Basically what it does is it searches out for all of the matching blocks attached to the breaker block, and then it kind of goes out and then it comes back in. Once it's kind of confirmed what all the blocks are, it queues them up to be deleted. This works much better than any solution I created other than this one. I iterated over a few, things like trying to check the blocks around you using raycast, trying to keep track of potential combos and chains like manually and stuff. None of it really was particularly good, to be perfectly honest. I'm still seeing a few bugs with the current implementation, but overall it's been pretty solid. I think the latest one I've seen is just some stuff that gets deleted accidentally when you've got some big combos going on. The second kind of like major challenge really was being able to create the combo blocks. So combo blocks are basically 2x2 or maybe like 4x2 groups, basically anything that is a square or a rectangle of the same colored blocks. And I needed a way to go out and kind of find the different groups that match that kind of criteria of being a rectangle and being next to each other. It's actually caused me a lot of problems, to be honest, and it took at least 6 months working on this particular problem to get like a solution working. I tried a bunch of kind of like weird self-built systems. I tried using a recursive algorithm similar to the one I use for braking. I tried to do some weird stuff with raycast again and checking stuff in the array and trying to write my own algorithm, but I couldn't really get anything working. I basically got lucky and I stumbled across a blog post that was kind of buried, and in that blog post they talked about a maximum rectangle algorithm. The algorithm itself is a bit of a nightmare. It uses like histograms to determine a maximum area of a rectangle from a group of objects. Basically, what I had to do was find a working example that somebody else had built, copy and paste it, splice it in, and then basically do a ton of customization work to make it work for me. I was able to get that kind of working, and to date that's been very, very good. There's no major bugs there at the moment, but I'm pretty sure something will come up eventually. Making the game a little bit more flexible and allowing multiple instances to run was probably the last thing that I had to deal with this. Obviously, I built the game initially as a Tetris game and then kind of used that to iterate out into the sword fighting game that it's become. What I hadn't really thought about when I was doing that initially was, how does this work if I've got 10 of these running? That took a little while to kind of fix. Changing systems, changing the way that things are recorded. I've actually had to use a little bit of trickery with the camera and like hiding boards behind each other to kind of keep everything working without having to do huge rewrites. But at the moment it's working. The main thing that's kind of missing at the moment is like the bigger sword strike combos. I'm planning to add that later. I've got the other kind of like strike logic working, and it's kind of, you can see blocks getting sent over, but I just haven't got the actual assets at the moment, or I haven't kind of thought about how I'm going to implement it, so I've kind of just parked it whilst I've been working on some other stuff. Once again, for sword fighting, I've started implementing machine learning AI using Unity's ML agents. I'm currently working on improving the AI's play and training it to different strength levels. One of the things which is really cool is that you can set it up so that the AI basically fights different versions of itself, and it gets almost like an MMR rating. I think it's actually an ELO rating, and then the different ELOs will play each other, and that will determine what version of the algorithm gets kept, and then what the next version of the algorithm is a kind of improvement on the original. From that perspective, I'd say the AI at the moment is probably fairly weak. In effect, I mean, the game itself plays a little bit like a more complicated Tetris, and there's plenty of videos of AI absolutely destroying Tetris. So I'm hoping that I'll be able to kind of get the kind of training system fully configured and working properly, and then that will basically allow me to kind of provide a proper scaling challenge to players, and as well, that will mean that the AI is actually playing against you rather than it being some sort of mass number system. As you can probably see, I've also had some artwork done for this game. So back in April, I decided that I was going to kind of get some bits done for the game. At that point, I was aiming for a kind of small little technical demo. I wanted to polish up a few of the puzzles, and I thought it would be nice to get the artwork done, or at least get something in place that kind of looks a little bit more professional than what I had, which was basically just cobbled together assets. I decided that I would hire a freelancer to help me with that, and I actually ended up hiring a kind of team from Ukraine. So not the first team of Ukrainians I've hired this year for different projects. But these guys, they're called Smug Duck. They kind of did a lot of assets, and they were really good to help me kind of like polish it up. The art style's great. It's all being kind of drawn by their artist, and I'm quite happy with how it looks. There's a few bits probably where I've implemented it where I probably need to fix that and kind of get it in there and make it look as good as it possibly can. But they were great to work with on it. They were really helpful, and I'm quite happy with it. So hopefully that will help as well set a bit more of a direction moving forward for any of like the 2D assets and the 2D kind of like style. So there's a few more things really that kind of, I suppose, need to kind of like round off sword fighting. Scoring combos, adding sword strikes to kind of send those over to the enemy player. Those are probably the big ones. But in the main, all the core systems are there. Everything's working, bar a few little bugs. So again, it's another piece of the puzzle complete. And that's it for this video. Thanks for watching. If you've got any feedback, let me know. I'm hoping that in the near future there'll be a technical preview, a bit of a demo for people to try. So hopefully I'll have a bit more news on that soon, and I've got plenty more things to talk about in the meantime. So until next time.